Word down here.
You know, I didn't realize that I learned recently on the America's Kitchen show that we actually have sensory taste buds for savory taste.
Recording in progress.
So I'm going to put people on mute, and then we will be chatty as the service concludes. Well, good morning, and welcome to Northern Lights Center for Spiritual Living, a community of people dedicated to using spiritual and practical principles to create lives we want to live. And Northern Lights Center for Spiritual Living offers practical and spiritual tools to make positive changes in our lives. Our promise here is to reveal, inspire, uplift, celebrate, and magnify your greatness. We acknowledge our presence here on the traditional and unceded lands of the first people of Seattle, the Duwamish and Coastal Salish peoples. These people are still here, and we join with them in how they continue to honor and bring to light their ancient heritage. We seek to resist the erasure of Indigenous histories as we work towards honoring and inviting the truth. In a similar fashion, we acknowledge how much of what we know in this country today, including its culture, economic growth and development throughout history and across time, has been made possible by the labor of enslaved Africans and their ascendants who suffered the horrors of transatlantic trafficking, chattel slavery, and Jim Crow. We also name the Asian and Chicano people who toiled with little recognition. We are indebted to their labors and sacrifices, and we acknowledge the tremors of that violence throughout the generations and the resulting impacts that can still be felt and witnessed today. This is adapted from T.J. Stewart. Please join me for our opening song, In This Very Room, by Ron and Carol Harris. In this very room, there's quite enough love for all the world. And in this very room, there's quite enough joy for all the world. And there's quite enough peace and quite enough power to walk through our every fear. For Spirit, sweet Spirit, is in this very room. In this very room. So we're going to prepare for our meditation. And to do that, I invite you to just find as comfortable a position as you can find. So you may want to just notice your feet on the ground if you're seated. Feet on the ground if you're standing. Feel the connection between your body and again, your chair or pillow. Just let yourself become aware of that. And in that awareness of your body in space, let your attention turn to the breath. Breath from the air all around your body, surrounding you. Coming from outside to inside. So as you breathe in, notice the rise of the chest. And as you breathe out, notice the fall of the chest. And with each breath in and each breath out, consider letting the breath out be a fraction of the time longer. to just release a little bit more than you took in. We all carry so much, and throughout the course of the day, we may find ourselves holding our breath. So letting out a little bit more than we take in may be a way to consciously let go of some of what we've been carrying. So just notice the body. With the breath in and with the breath out. Notice any places where there may be tension. And just breathe into that tension. And with the breath out, imagine releasing the tension. So just in that awareness of your body, breathing out any tension. And if the tension is hanging on, to just give it a little message saying, I'm going to listen to you. I'm going to find out what it is that you have to say. I'm going to spend a little bit of time. I'm going to invest this little bit of time in myself to hear this. Now, in this space and in this time, in this meditation of this conscious breathing into our bodies and this negotiation we've made with our bodies that we're going to listen, I'm going to guide us through our senses so that we have a greater ownership, greater mindfulness about all of the ways that our body carries us and uplifts us and upholds us. So with the breath in and with the breath out, begin to consider 5 things that you can see. Now, these don't have to be things that you're looking at right now, but just consider 5 things that you can see. What are the articles of clothing you've chosen to wear today? Did you choose them for their color? Did you choose them for their pattern, their design? As you consider where you are, just become aware of any artwork that you've used to adorn your place. Consider the faces of loved ones in your lives. Consider seeing your own body. So just allow yourself that consciousness of those 5 things that you can see. Will you allow the experience of beauty, the experience of love, the experience of awe to uplift you? Now, as we continue to breathe, consider 4 things that you can touch. Once again, you may consider any of the clothing that you're wearing. the textures. Is it soft? Is it crisp? Is it smooth? Is it wrinkled? If you're seated on a chair, what's the texture of that chair? With your feet on the floor, what does that floor feel like? What is the feeling of the air on your skin? What's the feeling of fingertips, touching fingertips? Just allow yourself to attend to that sense of touch and those 4 things that you can touch. Now we shift gears and we listen for 3 things that we can hear. Maybe you're aware of the sound of your breath coming in or the sound of your breath going out. Here at the center, people live above the room where we are. And I notice footsteps and the squeaking of the floor. Maybe you notice the sound of traffic. What are the 3 things that you can hear? Now, in the presence of what you can hear, consider 2 things that you can smell. Before the service, people talked about coffee mugs or tea. What's the fragrance from the food? From the beverage? If you've brushed your teeth, the smell of the toothpaste. Just allow those fragrances to lift you. To think of the distances that they traveled to get from where they started to where they came to be with you. And finally, if you've been sorting this out like a puzzle, what is one thing that you can taste? Again, if you drank a cup of coffee, can you imagine the flavor of that coffee? If you drank it black or had it with cream or had it with cream and sugar. If you had a tea, if you had some food for breakfast. What is a flavor that you allow to start the day? Just savor that flavor. And again, reflecting on the breath and the body that is experiencing the breath. Notice any feelings that have emerged in this awareness of our senses, in this awareness of our bodies, which carry us through the world. Notice if there's gratitude or awe. Notice if at any point you found yourself irritated or just basking in enjoyment. Just allow ourselves to be with those feelings, to honor them, to reverence their presence, acknowledge them, give them thanks. And in that honoring of your feelings, now just allow yourself to come back to the awareness of yourself seated in a chair if you're seated, your feet on the floor if you're standing. Allow yourself to wiggle your fingers and your toes. And if your eyes have closed, allow your eyes to open. Coming back to the present space. And I say, Amen, Ashe, and so it is. So we have our declaration. And for people who are familiar, we're going to do this 3 times. We are an expanding and loving community working in a field of infinite potential. We are an expanding and loving community working in a field of infinite potential. And finally, we are an expanding and loving community working in a field of infinite potential. And so it is. So this morning's reading, I'm reading it from my phone, but it comes from 2 spaces. One is from a book by Pema Chodron, When Things Fall Apart, and the other is The Global Heart Vision. Pema Chodron writes, "This is where we find ourselves. None of what we've learned seems very relevant when our friends leave us, when a child tantrums in the supermarket, when a colleague insults us. How do we reconcile those frustrations and humiliations with our longings to be open and compassionate? This is an interesting place to find oneself. For the practitioner, this is an exceedingly important place." We envision a world, all people, all beings, all life, as expressions of God. We see a world in which every person lives in alignment with their spiritual principle, emphasizing unity with the divine, connection with each other, and a world in which individuality and collectively we are called to a higher state of consciousness and action. We envision humanity awakening to its spiritual magnificence and discovering the creative power of thought A world where every person discovers their own personal power and ability to create an individual life that works within a world that works for everyone. We envision a world in which we live and grow as one global family that respects and honors the interconnectedness of all life. A world where this kinship with all life prospers and connects through the guidance of spiritual wisdom and experience. We envision a world where personal responsibility joins with social conscience in every area of the political, corporate, academic, and social sectors, providing sustainable structures to further the emerging global consciousness. We envision a world where each person has enough food, a home, a sense of belonging, a world of peace, harmony, enfranchisement, and justice. We envision a world in which resources are valued, cared for, and grown, where there is generous and continuous sharing of these resources. We envision a worldwide culture in which forgiveness, whether for errors, injustices, or debts, is the norm. We envision a world which has renewed its emphasis on beauty, nature, and love through the resurgence of creativity, art, and aesthetics. And finally, we envision a world that works for all and for all creation. And so it is.
Perfect timing. Good morning. It's very good to be here with you. Last Sunday in February. And today our system is working.
Sound system.
Well, in theory it's working. So here's our first song.
Come on back, people.
Hello? I guess I spoke too soon. Try a little differently here.
Come on back, people.
Breathe in. Breathe out.
And walking
I'm not going to make it big screen.
with my face turned to the sun. Weight on my shoulders, a bullet in my gun. Oh, I got eyes in the back of my head, just in case I had to run.
lost the freedom? Would you like to pick a new name to mark your freedom?
Early in the morning, before the sun begins to shine, gonna start moving towards that separating line. I'm waiting for my water. You know I got made up mind, and I don't mind if I lose any blood on the way to salvation. And I'll fight with the strength that I got until I die. So I'm gonna stand up, take my people with me. Together we are going to a brand new home. Far across the river, you hear freedom calling, calling me to answer. Gonna keep on keeping on.
Harriet, welcome to the Underground Railroad.
Take my people with me. Together we are going to a brand new home. Far across the river, you hear freedom calling, calling me to answer. Gonna keep on keeping on. I'm gonna stand up, take my people with me. Together we are going to a brand new home. Far across the river, you hear freedom calling, calling me to answer. Gonna keep on keeping on. I'm gonna stand up, take my people with me. Together we are going to a brand new home. Far across the river, I hear freedom calling, calling me to answer. Gonna keep on keeping on. Feeling alone.
The songs I chose today I chose them, I had other songs picked out. But yesterday when I was working on the talk, I changed my mind. I wanted something to honor Black History Month. Because we don't do it enough. I mean, it just hit me and I just decided, well, it's my talk, I can do what I want. And it ties in with and the title of the talk today is basically a new way of being together. And as I was watching this again today, just now, the idea of what they went through to be free, to be being together in a whole different way, from being slaves to being free in the North, but what they had to go through to do it. And I kind of asked Reverend Vaughn to read the
Vision.
the vision because it ties in with the talk today. And the talk is a little different. It's not. It's part of it is a mindfulness from a mindfulness training, I can't even say the word, put together by Thich Nhat Hanh. And so I suggested, and he took the suggestion well, which sometimes is good. And so the idea of being together in different ways is the seeds of awakening and love in all people and all species on earth with a spiritual dimension in your life. You can live deeply in every moment. And with that energy, you can take action to protect the planet and all living things. So Reverend Vaughn did the meditation on mindfulness. And when I told him yesterday that I was going to center a lot of this talk today was around mindfulness, and he started laughing because he went to a training this week. He was off all week, but he wasn't off. He had a training for 4 days, and a lot of that was centered around mindfulness. So it must be something in the air. And so mindfulness teaches the importance of staying in the present moment. Yet most of us live on autopilot, unaware of how our habits, opinions, and stories keep us blind to the world's beauty, to the world's love and magic. However, to really participate in the transformation of the world, we must come from love. Prentice Hemphill writes, "The idea of welcoming love as a means of relating to ourselves and others is challenging because it goes against our training. There is a resistance to love in a culture that puts us down, shames us, and encourages us to run after other less authentic versions of ourselves. But what if we were able to see ourselves as we are? Embrace our histories, resist shame, and still insist on taking action. That, to me, is a love practice." And that was by Prentice Hemphill. And I love that, that part about that we are, a lot of times we're in this culture and there's so much shaming, so much blaming, and all this, and why can't we just kick that to the curb? So what I'm saying today is based on the mindfulness training by Thich Nhat Hanh, which is a blueprint for creating a more just world, as if we don't need that now. They mesh with the Centers for Spiritual Living's global vision, as what Reverend Vaughn read. And they can create a groundwork for transforming your life, our life, and the world. First one is the reverence for life. And I just like those 3 words there, the reverence for life. And just think about, when I was looking at that, the thing we want to do, I think, so much is to live. And to live maybe forever, which, we do. I decided yesterday we do live forever. We never die. We just change places. And it's interesting to me to actually come to that conclusion. I mean, I've heard it before, but once in a while you can hear things, and then, you don't quite get them, then all of a sudden, slap, there it is, right in your face. And I think that's what happened to me, that we never die. Reverence for life teaches that the only certainty we have is our existence and our desire to continue living. This fundamental truth connects us with all forms of life, from elephants to a blade of grass. I love that comparison because it's from one of the biggest things to very small thing. and naturally, every human being. Thus, we are brothers and sisters to all living creatures and owe them the same care and respect. We owe them the same care and respect that we wish for ourselves. That golden rule, And reverence for life is recognizing the suffering caused by the destruction of life. Commit to cultivating the insight of interbeing and compassion, while learning ways to protect the lives of people, animals, plants, and minerals. Resolve not to kill, to stop others from killing, and to withhold support from any act of killing in the world, whether it in thought or in lifestyle. I love the idea of thought, because our mind is a powerful and can be dangerous thing. And we can actually, not maybe physically kill somebody with our thought and our words, but we sure as hell can kill them in other ways. Understanding that harmful actions stem from anger, fear, greed, and intolerance, which arise from the dualistic and discriminatory thinking. We strive to foster openness, non-discrimination, non-attachment to views to transform violence, fanaticism, and dogmatism within ourselves and in the world. To transform, to change. Like change our thinking, change our lives. Change our thinking, change our lives, change the world. Because that's what we need to do. Our world is, right now, in my opinion, needs a little bit of changing, or a lot of changing. The next part is called true happiness. And that's being aware of the suffering caused by exploitation, social injustice, theft, and oppression. We are committed to practicing generosity in our thoughts, words, and actions. We will not steal and will refrain from possessing anything that rightfully belongs to others. Sharing our time, our energy, and the material resources with those in need. We will practice looking deeply to understand that the happiness and the suffering of others are intertwined with our own. That true happiness cannot exist without understanding and compassion. And that chasing after wealth, fame, power, and sensual pleasures can lead to significant suffering and despair. We recognize that happiness relies on our mental attitude rather than external conditions. And we can live joyfully in the present moment by acknowledging that we already possess more than enough to be happy. It is characterized by joy, contentment, and positive well-being, coupled with the feeling that one's life is good and worthwhile. That our life and every other life is good and worthwhile. We have this, there's so many areas where people are judged not being as good as another person. And to me, that's wrong. Each one of us are that, I say this so often, but it's so true, that we're that divine expression, each one of us. So how can one person, one thing be better than the other if we are expressions of that divine? Each of us. It's one of those things that is dumbfounding. It's mind-boggling. That if we are, each of us, that divine expression, then how can I be better than someone else? How can I be worse by someone else? We judge people on their sex, their race, their wealth, or their poorness. And each of us are worthwhile. Each life is worthwhile. Each life is of value. And so if we consider that, if we realize that, if we accept it and practice it, then God, yes, the world will be a better place to live. So now the next thing is true love. And that's being aware of the suffering caused by sexual misconduct. Be committed to fostering responsibility and finding ways to protect the safety and integrity of individuals, of couples, of families, and society. To be committed to fostering their responsibility and finding ways to protect them. Understand that sexual desire is not love, and that sexual activity driven from craving ultimately harms both us and others. And unlike when you're infatuated with someone, I like that, when you're infatuated. I remember being infatuated. It's been a long time since I was infatuated. When you're infatuated with someone, you don't tend to lose yourself. To lose yourself in a relationship when you feel true love. Because when you feel a true love, both your true selves can thrive. So both of your true selves can thrive in true love. Be willing to do everything in my power to protect children from sexual abuse and to prevent couples and families from being torn apart, which we're seeing now. Families being torn apart again. And being torn apart by sexual misconduct. Recognizing that body and mind are one. To be dedicated to learning appropriate ways to care for my sexual energy and cultivating loving kindness. That's one of the big things I think in mindfulness we need to practice, is that loving kindness. Loving kindness for ourselves and loving kindness for others. To cultivating loving kindness, compassion, joy, and inclusiveness. It's considered the 4 essential elements for true love. That's kindness, compassion, joy, and inclusiveness. I've never heard it quite put like that, but it makes sense. The 4 essential elements of true love for my own happiness and the greater happiness of others. So many times I think in this life we search for happiness, we get happiness, and sometimes the thought is to hell with everybody else. They have to find their own. I don't necessarily agree with that, because one of my philosophies is that we are here on this earth to love, but more importantly, to learn how to love. And that's not the sexual love, it's the divine love, how to love unconditionally, how to love one another without judging. I know that can be a difficult thing. And it can be a difficult thing to try to love someone who is totally opposite, totally, doing negative things in this life. By practicing this true love, we know we will continue flourishing beautifully into the future. So by practicing, and I think assisting others to practice it, Ernest Holmes wrote that love overcomes both hate and fear. However, love does not overcome hate and fear through controversy, argument, or force, but by a subtle power of transformation, transmutation, and sublimation. It is invisible in the essence, but apparent through its act. As light overcomes darkness, as the presence of heat causes the coolness of a room to change until it is warm and comfortable, so the radiant action of love and peace dissipates fear, hate, and confusion. That radiant action of love dissipates the peace, radiant action of love, peace, and dissipates fear, hate, and confusion. The next part is loving speech and deep listening. And this is, to me, is one of the, well, they're all, to me, very, very important. But this one talks about listening and about your words, because our words are powerful. Our words are creative. Our words are dangerous. Be mindful of how you speak. Stop, think, and then maybe speak after that. But understanding the pain caused by careless speech and the failure to listen to others. Be dedicated to fostering loving communications and compassionate listening to alleviate suffering and encourage reconciliation. And peace within myself and other individuals, ethnic and religious groups, and nations. If we truly watch what comes out of our mouths, to me, I find that so, I can't think of the word, well, important is one of them, but if we just stop, when you, especially when you're angry or you're in a mood where somebody, raises your dander or gets you frustrated, and you want to respond right away, you want to react, and you come at it out of anger or frustration, whatever, and odds are what comes out of your mouth, is not really necessarily what you mean. You may feel you mean it at the moment, but if you would stop and think, well, maybe I could have said that a little differently. Because there's no rewind on your tongue. Sorry, I really wish there was. Like on a computer, you can delete,
Edit.
you can edit, and that's the big thing. If we stop and edit our thoughts, I like that. Thank you, Jeffrey. If we edit what we want to say before we say it. I know when I get angry, a lot of times I go quiet. Like our youngest daughter one time said, you fight silently. And you don't think kids pay attention. I've said that before. Who knew they were listening? Who knew they were observant like that? But she was. It's so funny because it's true. Because I grew up in a household that was not a healthy household. There were a lot of words that went through, flying through, and hammers. We had a few broken things. And I grew up not wanting to